Last night, Donald Trump announced a travel ban from Europe. This will apply to European citizens in the European Union's Schengen zone. It covers 26 countries, will not apply to the United Kingdom. And my understanding as of right now is that American citizens will be fine. You can come back, but you will be screened. Now, we've got a bunch of information to go through, and some of it's actually kind of scary. There's a report now. This is from the House Oversight Committee. CDC Director Robert Redfield admitted some Americans who seemingly died from influenza were tested positive for COVID-19 after they died. And this was admitted during a House Oversight Committee Wednesday. This is really happening. It seems like the mortality rate could be worse. Now, here's some challenges. If all the numbers are bad, we really just have no idea what to expect. And that's kind of worse. Look, if we know the mortality rate is at a certain number, if we know the infection rate is a certain number, then we can prepare adequately. But if both numbers are wrong, now we're just kind of flopping around like a fish out of water. So the challenge now will be, one, accurately testing as many people as possible to figure out what the real mortality rate is. Make sure people aren't spreading the coronavirus, because if you go out and people start getting sick, it's going to get substantially worse. It'll overload the medical system. We're now learning the NBA season is canceled. A ton of other sporting events have been canceled. Conferences are being shut down. And now the most drastic action so far is the shuttering of travel from Europe. So suffice it to say, man, wow, we're in the thick of things. But I got bad news. Yesterday, we talked about, on the Timcast IRL podcast, we talked about some data showing that we're tracking very similarly to Italy, which now has over 12,000 reported cases and around a 6% or so mortality rate. If that if that remains true, the data for all of these other countries in the United States is basically a week away from being on par with where Italy is at. So there's a big concern right now that we can follow two trajectories. South Korea, which began testing immediately, testing everyone, and got their mortality rate down to about 0.6%, or Italy, which ignored it, and now it's spiraled out of control. And the bad news they have for everybody is that it looks like we're tracking towards Italy. At least that's what people have been saying. Now, I want to show you this graph. This was posted to Medium. They say the source is Thomas Pueyo. Analysis from primary data from Worldometer only includes countries that have more than 20 cases and a greater than 5% growth rate. This red dotted line shows the daily growth. This red dotted line shows the countries that anyone beyond it are doubling their cases every 2 days. And yes, guess what? The United States is doubling the amount of people infected every 2 days. Belgium has it substantially worse. Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates, Netherlands, France, Austria. So it is safe to say it makes sense why Donald Trump ordered this ban from Europe. Now, already people are annoyingly, I got to say, Don Lemon, one of the most annoying, stupid people on the planet, who once asked whether or not an airplane could have been swallowed by a black hole, lost his mind on his show because John Kasich said, I appreciate the president taking a serious tone with this. And Don Lemon is so deranged, Trump derangement syndrome, that no matter what happens, no matter how serious the crisis, he desperately tries to make it partisan politics. Donald Trump said he was suspending all travel from Europe. And then all of a sudden, no one really knew what it meant. And CNN is now saying, they say Trump was forced to clarify. Forced to clarify? Calm down. Trump clarified to people who had questions about the limits of the travel ban. Apparently, Allison Camerota was talking with Pence, and she said, but it's not a travel ban. It's a restriction, and it only applies to some people. Calm down. They do this all the time with Trump. They play semantics to try and turn this into a partisan political issue. I cannot stand CNN. They are just the absolute worst. So we've got serious issues. And I'll show you the stupid Don Lemon thing. But let me show you this first. EU condemns Trump travel ban from Europe as virus spread. I'm sorry, man. We got the data right here. Let me show you this. Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands, France, Austria, they got massive growth rates. So having these citizens not come to the U.S., I think that kind of makes sense. The suspension is for 30 days. I got to say, this is nuts. I almost didn't expect it would get this bad. I'll tell you what, man. Early on, a lot of people just poo-pooed it and said, nah, who cares? Admittedly, I was one of them. Like the first video I did on this, I said, nah, it's not going to be that bad. We've seen things get way worse. Once the quarantine started getting a lot heavier is when my tone changed. And since then, I've been advising people to make sure you got supplies. I'm going to show you something, all right? We're going to read about the EU condemnation, Don Lemon losing his mind, but I want to show you something. This is a photo from last night. I went to Walmart. We decided that we already had supplies. Like, we already went shopping, but we didn't go nuts, right? When I started telling everybody that you should go and pick up supplies, do your regular shopping, I was talking about, grabbing, 1 or 2 gallons of water and a couple cans of beans. Nothing super serious, just doing your shopping early. Once Donald Trump announced they were suspending travel from Europe, there was a collective holy F moment between me and my friends. And we were like, we should probably go to the store and get some canned goods and things that'll last us a lot longer, because the worst case scenario is we got a ton of beans. We're going to have taco night. That's the joke, right? But it's true. I mean, we'll have tacos. It's going to be great. We got chili lime seasoning. It's going to be fun. But considering the drastic measures we've seen, considering the data and the trajectory we've been looking at, I got to say, I'm a bit of an optimist. I am not a doomsday, prepper kind of person. And so I admittedly was late to the toilet paper, the toilet paper aisle. Check this photo out. For those that are listening, there's a picture of Adam, who co-hosts the IRL podcast with me. And he's just got this look on his face like, what? And guess what? The aisle in Walmart near me, no toilet paper. There's a couple rolls. You can still see them. And there's some like alcohol wipes or something. But for the most part, the aisle was completely stripped of toilet paper. And that was crazy. But there's more. Check this out. Distilled water, almost entirely gone. There was still a bit there. Then we have this. This is the milk section, almost entirely gone. You can still there was some milk, and there was heavy cream, but for the most part, the milk, I couldn't believe it. And then we have this. This was the mac and cheese section. There's still a bit of mac and cheese, but man, the shelves were stripped. I would say, look, I go shopping decently often, like once a week. We go for groceries, right? We don't panic. We just do normal grocery shopping. When I went there the other day, it definitely seemed that people had been buying a lot more than usual. I don't want to look. We were still able to get a bunch of stuff with no problems, but I think we're early, and that's what's scary to me. We went shopping as soon as this news broke, and we got our supplies. I hope you're considering doing this now too, because let me tell you, it's not going to end with a travel ban from Europe. Let me show you this data. We are doubling the infection rate every 2 days. Just do the basic math, man. We've got 1,200 cases in the U.S. 2 days from now, 24, 48. It goes on from there, 96. It's going to keep going up, and we are going to find ourselves, I hope it's not true, but in Italy territory, where they've locked everything down. They issue 3 month jail time for anyone who breaks quarantine. I think that's where we're heading. You can see it's way, way worse in the Schengen zone. But when you look at the data from when the U.S. first started seeing cases emerge to when Europe did, Europe apparently now is the new epicenter of the expansion of the coronavirus. They're saying that China has got things under control. I don't believe it. I mean, it's possible because they basically locked everyone in their houses. We can't do that for the most part. We need to rely on people to just decide to stay in their houses. If that's the case and you don't have food, I don't know what you're going to do. Look, it doesn't seem like the world will stop. Deliveries are still happening. But I think we might get to that point. I'm not kidding. Look, we want to be wrong about this. But you've had so many people trying to downplay this and act like nothing was happening. And now that Donald Trump has actually, it's mind-numbing to me that literally no matter what Trump does, they are just shrieking on TV like moronic banshees banging their heads on the wall. Calm down, you lunatics. Don Lemon is one of the worst people ever. He's just awful. The guy once said that he asked whether a plane could have been sucked into a black hole. That's the guy they put on TV. Well, of course, you get people like him screeching, Trump isn't doing enough. He's downplaying the coronavirus. I think it was MSNBC. They did this really awful thing where Trump was asked a question about coronavirus preparedness. And he said something like, take a look at the flu today. We've got, 8,000 deaths. We've got, tens of thousands of people who have been infected since October. With that being said, we are taking the coronavirus very, very seriously. And, we'll be taking action to curtail blah, blah, blah. I'm paraphrasing. So I don't like the flu rhetoric, but the president's between a rock and a hard place. I think he needs to be tougher, harder on what we're seeing with the coronavirus, but I can also respect you can't spark panic. If Trump came out and said, it's a very serious thing, this coronavirus, lots of people will die, then the media would be like, Trump's inciting panic. This is not what a president should be doing. He should be calm. Literally nothing that the guy can do. And then I'm stuck here listening to people like Don Lemon. Yes, I have to listen to him. Why? He's trending nationwide as people tear him apart for being a moron. So I'm not going to pretend like I could ever do a better job in terms of trying to calm people down while making sure they prepare. But Don Lemon loses it after John Kasich says he liked Trump's coronavirus speech. There is literally nothing the president could do that any of these people would ever say was a good thing. Trump could sit and do nothing and they'd be like, he's not even doing anything. He can say just the word coronavirus and they'd be like, why is he saying? Like, literally nothing he can do. So Don Lemon loses it because this guy is a partisan leftist. He is not a news anchor. And I wish they would just admit it. It was a while ago that the New York Times apparently said they weren't going to allow their reporters to appear on CNN or on Don Lemon's show. I think they may have reversed that, but it was because Don Lemon is a partisan, pushing partisan politics, not reporting the news. And Don Lemon got all offended. I am absolutely reporting the news. Anybody who tells you this while screeching about the president, like these are grifters. Don Lemon doesn't know or care about anything. All he knows is that he must yell at the president every single day. Here's what I'll tell you. I complain about Democrats all the time, and I admit that I'm biased. And I've actually done like a deep dive, like psychoanalysis on myself. I'm half kidding, by the way. But no, I've talked about how I grew up in a Democrat-controlled city, and I've been personally slighted by them. So naturally, I have my biases, and I'm giving you my opinion on what I think is important in the news as we're dealing with a major Democratic primary, and this will lead to the race against Trump. I think Trump isn't, I've criticized him on his rhetoric about the coronavirus, but you got to be calm about things. I think the speech Trump gave last night was fine. It was absolutely fine. He said we're suspending travel, all travel from Europe. And if someone needs clarification on that, which they probably will, that's normal. The president gave a general statement. People said, okay, let's break down what this means. And now CNN, not just Don Lemon, are acting like he was giving us some vague directive that no one can understand. And people are panicking because of it. What are you talking about? He said, here's the plan. And then people said, so does that include like trade goods? No, it doesn't. Oh, okay. Are there any countries that will be exempt? Right. Yes. We're talking about the European Union in the Schengen zone. Okay. Thank you. Will this block American citizens? No, it won't. Americans will be able to come back and be screened. And I think that's a constitutional thing. I don't think that you can tell a citizen they're not allowed to come back home. Let me read this for you. And then we'll read about the EU condemning the travel ban. Things got extremely heated on CNN on the CNN set Wednesday when former Ohio governor turned CNN political commentator John Kasich was essentially read the riot act by Don Lemon for saying he thought President Donald Trump did a fine job with his address on coronavirus. With the Trump administration having to issue multiple clarifications following the speech. Having to. I can't stand these people. Dude, there have been so many statements made by Barack Obama and George Bush and Bill Clinton, and the press secretary comes out and is literally asked questions to clarify things. It's what the press corps is supposed to be doing. Recently, Obama said that he was preparing this. Does that mean 1, 2, or 3, A, B, C? Actually, no. What it will mean is this. Thank you for the clarification. Yet when Trump comes out and gives a 10-minute address, of course there's going to be clarifications. These people are insane. Such as on Trump's 30-day European travel ban, Lemon noted that the president was sending mixed messages during a crisis. Kasich, there's literally nothing the guy can do. I can't stand this. Can we please have a sane and rational argument about what Donald Trump is saying and whether or not the European travel ban can be effective and what it means for trade and the economy? Instead, Don Lemon just goes on TV with his NPC face screeching Orange Man bad. No real conversation occurs. Is the travel ban the right thing to do? I honestly don't know. If American citizens can still come back, are we still risking infection? Oh, but they're going to be screening people. Maybe it makes sense. What if people in the European Union go to the UK? Will the UK be barring them? There's a lot of questions we could ask. Not having to do with whether or not Trump was forced to clarify anything. But Don Lemon, CNN, and these woke resistance morons don't care about the actual crisis we're facing. The only thing they care about is whether or not the Orange Man can be called bad today. They say Kasich, meanwhile, felt Trump was able to stick to the script and act serious. The CNN anchor, however, fired back, noting that we need accurate information. You know what, Don Lemon? You're supposed to be hosting a late night news show, and you once suggested that a black hole could swallow an airplane. So you do not get to throw stones while you live in a glass house made of glass so thin you could tap it with your pinky and the whole thing would collapse. At one point, the two went into it so fiercely that Kasich asked if he could finish what he was saying, and Lemon snapped back, "No, you can't, John." Kasich would also say that we need to move forward and not look back, causing Lemon to shout the speech was just 2 hours ago. Yeah, that was a stupid statement from Kasich, but it was also a stupid statement from Don Lemon. I get the point Kasich was trying to make, but look, it did just happen. So if you want to talk about it, I think it's stupid. Like, don't look at the past, let's look to the future. No, look, if I want to criticize someone in the past, I can do it. But I do respect the point. Listen, Trump made a statement. What does it mean? Let's talk about our plans for the future. Morons like Don Lemon they just screech into the wind no matter what happens. They hate the orange man. So now we can see the European Union officials said that the illness doesn't respect borders and requires cooperation rather than unilateral action. This to me is kind of silly. If Italy had locked things down early, they would be in a much better position. But they didn't. They ignored it. And now Europe is basically, it's like, you know what I see when I see this statement? Let me read this. They say, the European Union disapproves of the fact that the U.S. decision to impose a travel ban was taken unilaterally and without consultation. The coronavirus is a global crisis, not limited to any continent, and requires cooperation rather than unilateral action. It sounds to me like misery loves company. They're like, hey, if we're going to get it, why can't we send our citizens to your country? It's like, wait, hold on. You mean we're still trading between the nations? Okay. What you're basically saying is that tourists can't come? That's it. Because apparently the travel restrictions, official travel will still be acceptable. So I'm assuming diplomats and government actors will still be able to move between the countries and communicate. Not only that, we have the internet. You got satellites. You can talk if you need to. We can send trade goods. Calm down. Sounds like this is mostly to do with tourists, to restrict travel from countries that have many infected people into countries that don't. I think it's going to get bad in the U.S. I'm not sure this will be as effective as we think. And I think we're several steps behind this thing. I think that's fair to say. So here's what I'm going to say. I think Trump is doing what Trump needs to do. I'm glad he's taking it seriously. My criticism of him was that he was downplaying it too much. Now it seems like he stepped a bit in front of the seriousness of this with a travel restriction. So I'll give credit where credit is due. I don't know if it's the right answer. I don't know what should or shouldn't be done, but I'm glad he's taking a more serious tone and addressing this and saying we're going to take some actions. That's a good thing. I do think, however, based on where we've been starting in January, when I first started covering this, the story first emerged, around the end of December, to then February and where we are today, I couldn't believe it, man. I looked back at some of my old videos. And I think the first video I did on this was like January 23rd. And now where we are today, based on what I was talking about then, it is way, way worse. Which says to me that it is a fair assessment that we are several steps behind this. And it will get way worse and probably much worse than anyone realizes. Look at what China had to do to stem the spread. They barricaded people in their homes. They disappeared people. They went to people's houses and grabbed them and carried them off. They built massive hospitals and massive mobilization very quickly. We're not like China. And Italy didn't take it seriously. And now some people are saying we are on track to be like Italy. So keep an eye on where Italy goes. They have a much smaller population. You know what that means? And it's hard to speculate. But where Italy is at now, with much fewer people, in the United States, it may grow significantly faster. The important thing, though, is that when you look at the EU, European countries have a lot more people than, say, an American state, but it operates similarly, right? So the European Union is 26 member states. Italy is not as big as the entirety of the United States, but if you look at how our states operate, like Texas and France are similar size, then we can see the spread in Europe similarly to how it would affect the entirety of the United States, meaning I think we're going to see New York get slammed by this. They've already instituted the containment zone in New Rochelle, National Guard being deployed to help assist, ghost town in the streets. It's appearing in Manhattan, it's my understanding. And you've got 2.5 or so million people who live on that island, plus millions who go in and out every day. New York is so dense, I think we're going to get slammed hard by this. Already, New Jersey has 23 reported cases. People keep saying it's not as bad as the flu. Now they're saying it's traveling faster. At first it said as fast as. Now they're saying it's traveling faster. So yes, the flu is a mortality rate of of 0.1%. And now we're looking at a 3.4, or in Italy, around 6%. Take this seriously. People are being instructed to work from home. Fortunately, for the most part, I already do that, so I'll be doing that. We went out shopping early, and we went out again last night when Trump made this announcement. And I really thought that as soon as Trump said they were suspending travel, we were going to see people rush to the store. A little bit. There were a lot of people we saw buying a lot of stuff, but we actually stocked up on supplies more than I thought we would ever consider it. And even then, we didn't go out and buy like a year's supply of anything. We just got, we didn't really get that much, to be honest. We just went out and said, let's get a little bit more. I don't know what to expect, man. The only thing I can predict is that every step of the way, we have been 1 or 2 steps behind, saying, is it going to get bad? Is this going to happen? So I think it's possible that my predictions, it's actually going to be worse than I think in the next week or so. But I can't tell you what to expect. I can't. What I can tell you is this can cause pneumonia, which can lead to permanent lung damage. And it's spreading rapidly. And if it does end up infecting 60 to 70% of the world, that's a lot of people who are going to be hurt by this. More importantly, not everyone is sick with coronavirus. Not everyone has COVID. But because of the severity of it, they're essentially doing a triage-like system where they're getting treatment first. So that means people with diabetes who need to get checked up. People with, all of a sudden, let's say you get appendicitis, and they say, our beds are full. We have nowhere for you to go. Let's say there are people who are getting cancer treatment. Sorry, we can't have you come in right now. Just stay home and stay comfortable. We've got someone who might die. That's what's going to happen, and that's what's scary. Your neighbor kid might slip and fall and break a wrist, and there's not going to be any doctors to help set that bone. Or they're going to be waiting 12 hours in a hospital where people have the COVID-19. So this is the serious challenge we're facing, medical system overload. It is expanding that fast. And all the people who laughed and said, oh, geez, it's fine, it's no big deal, they're going to be the ones who are left out high and dry. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. I will see you all then.